so excited to have Olena, Volodymyr, and Viktoriia here today to share a little bit about your journey from Ukraine to here in Pembroke. And so I'm really grateful for you to be here today. Olena and Volodymyr and Viktoriia, can you share a little bit about your story? You know, what was life like in Ukraine before the conflict began? And what led you to make the really difficult decision to leave?
Before the war in Ukraine, we had a normal, peaceful life. We had full-time job, a home, and big plans for the future. My husband originally had a job, an engineer, and then changed his job for driver internationally. I work at City Hall dealing with utilities for public buildings such as hospitals, libraries, and schools. The Canada-Ukraine Authorization for Emergency Travel Program enticed us to come to Canada. We all of a sudden made the difficult decision to leave our home and fly to Canada.
February 24, 2022, our life completely changed. We woke up with the news that the full-scale invasion started. It was very scary. We didn't know if we will ever see our friends and relatives again. There was almost no food left in the stores, very big traffic jams on the roads, and we didn't really know what to do. We had 4 backpacks always ready near our door with some food, water, because we never knew how long we would have to stay in the basement. We would have to go in the basement every day, every night, for a couple times. It could be 3-5 hours. It was still winter, so it was very cold and wet. What made us to do this decision is we were scared to live because we didn't know if the bomb will fly into our house at any moment. It was difficult because we love Ukraine very much. It's the biggest country in Europe with very many natural resources, access to the sea, with access to the Carpathian Mountains and the Crimea Mountains. Ukrainians are very hardworking, beautiful landscapes, but we were forced out our home.
It must have been so difficult to make the decision to leave Ukraine. But can you share a little bit about the journey from Ukraine to Pembroke and maybe some of the biggest challenges that you faced in that journey leaving your home country?
Maybe the hardest things for us was to leave our adult son in Ukraine. Our son is now 22, he is a student and works online for IT company. When the war started, many universities and schools of Ukraine switched to online education. Airports of Ukraine were not running. The first Russian bombs and missiles hit the airports. Our son bought me and my daughter plane tickets from Austria to Toronto, Canada. Our return trip was booked for 5 months later, which we did not take. You know, the war has been going on now for 2 years and 4 months. My husband came to join us 6 months later when Canada became our second home.
What were your first impressions when you arrived in Pembroke?
In Ukraine, we live in a small town with a similar population to Pembroke. We were used to living in a small town and preferred it to a big city. Our daughter found a nice family on the refugee website who took us from Toronto to Pembroke and hosted us at their place. I enjoy that the people of Pembroke are friendly and it is a lovely community. There are many individuals and families who help us so much. I appreciate them so much. I can't thank them enough.
It really is community that brings us all together. So I'm really happy to hear that the community of Pembroke have wrapped their arms around you. So how have you and your children adjusted to life in Canada? What have been some of the biggest cultural and daily life adjustments that you've had to make?
We came to a new place with its unique traditions, ways of life, so we really had to learn. There are very many differences, like food, language, just everything. For example, it's way colder here than in Ukraine, especially the winter time. For me, the school is very different, the school system in general, because in Ukraine there are 11 grades and in Canada it's 12. I really like that I can choose my classes here, because in Ukraine I would have schedule and I was able to choose. What else is different is in Ukraine there are more apartment buildings compared to the private houses, and in Ukraine everything is way closer. So in few hours drive we could be in another country. So yeah, Canada is much bigger. There are very many differences.
And in Ontario, you can drive for a couple hours and still be in Ontario.
Yes.
A very big difference.